Miss Head said, "Notorious was my first opportunity to dress Ingrid Bergman the way she should be. For such, listen to this, for such a big woman, for such a big woman, she was a joy to dress. I was able to do evening clothes, sports clothes, street clothes, the whole gamut." Now, Ingrid Bergman was big compared to someone like Katharine Hepburn. I look at some of Katharine Hepburn's dresses that we have at the V&A now, and it seems to me if she turned sideways, she'd disappear. You know, they're like double zeros, these girls with really big heads. So here on the left, that's Miss Head. Somebody else's sketch, but Miss Head's design. You can see Ingrid up on the right, it's a marvelous picture. And this is what Miss Head has to say. "I do prepare sketches for Mr. Hitchcock, and because I've worked a great deal with him, I know his likes and his dislikes. He has a complete phobia about what he calls eye catchers, like a scene with a woman in a bright purple or a man in an orange suit. Unless there is a story reason for a color, we keep all colors muted because Hitchcock believes they can detract from an important scene. Hitchcock uses color, actually, almost like an artist, preferring soft greens and cool colors for certain moods. But a lot of directors couldn't care less what color a dress or a suit is, or what material it's made from." In the first scene at a party where she met Cary Grant, I dressed her in a zebra skin blouse with her midriff exposed. In a black and white film, the eye is immediately attracted to the stark contrast of black and white, since other colors become various shades of gray. Visually, Miss Bergman became the most important woman in the room. In other dramatic scenes, we dressed Ingrid either in pure white or solid black, and true to Hitchcock's form, these colors reflected her mood. Throughout the film, Ingrid Bergman wore demure, covered-up costumes and very little jewelry. To be glamorous, some women need accessories galore. Just think for a minute about Miss Dietrich. Just think about Miss Dietrich. You couldn't put enough on Dietrich. You could put fur, you could put a stack of diamonds, you could put earrings, pearls, you could load that girl up. She's 5'1", you could load her up, and you could never overwhelm her. She was just that kind of a star. But here, it's stripped down, less is more. It's totally different. So some women needed, I'm not saying Dietrich needed, but some women needed accessories galore, jewels, furs, feathers, silly hats, all the things that Ingrid Bergman hates. She looks marvelous in plain things, a smock or a blouse and a skirt or a tailored dressing gown. She must have simplicity, skillful design, and practically no ornamentation. Hers is elegance in the subtlest sense. For costume designer, Ingrid Bergman is an education in restraint. And I'm just going to break and again say, I want you all to think about the costuming in Casablanca. And that was designed by Ori Kelly. So think about how simply she was designed. Miss Bergman was designed in Casablanca. Same thing, white, medium grays, no jewelry, very, very elegant, and it did the job. Back to Miss Head. She said, "I learned my restraint lessons very well. In what was one of the most sexiest love scenes ever on screen, Bergman and Grant were totally dressed, but who remembers, and I want to interject, who cares what they wore?" Back to Miss Head. "I just had to be sure that I pleased Hitchcock. He was very specific about costumes for his leading ladies. He spoke a designer's language, even though he didn't know the first thing about clothes. He specified color in the script only if it was important. If he wanted a skirt that brushed a desk as a woman walked by, he spelled that out too. For Notorious, he repeated many, many times that the clothes must not be the focal point. That Bergman was to be a believable secret agent. The job was very tricky. Her clothes couldn't be smart in an ordinary sense. They had to avoid the fussy and the extreme, and they had to be right for her. So, Alfred Hitchcock's first direction on Rear Window, the rough and tumble news magazine photographer played by James Stewart, felt that this character, Grace Kelly's character, was too much a piece of Dresden china for him. And the clothes that Edith Head designed had to tell the story. Here's Edith. In Rear Window, Grace Kelly was cast as a high society type, so her part called for extremely stylish wardrobe. Hitchcock told me it was important that Grace's clothes help establish some of the conflict in the story. She was to be the sophisticated society girl magazine editor who falls in love with a scruffy photographer, James Stewart. He's insecure and thinks that he's not good enough for her. Her suits were impeccably tailored. Her accessories looked as if they couldn't be worn by anyone else except her. She was perfect. Few actresses could have carried off the look the way Grace did. And what you're seeing, and ladies and gentlemen, you don't know this, and it may not matter to you, but you don't know this, but nobody else has seen these sketches. Miss Head left her archive of 1,800 sketches to the Wisconsin Center for Film and Television in Madison, Wisconsin, and I scanned them all this summer. So you're seeing things that people haven't seen before. So here you are. Now, Miss Head, again, these are not her drawings. To me, doesn't matter, they are her designs, right? So, since all the action took place in one room, everything that happened within that room had to have an impact. Grace's clothes often provided that impact with her entrances in these incredible costumes. The clothes helped advance the narrative. The black and white dress that he used in the first love scene had a simple neckline which framed her face in close-ups. Then, as the camera pulled back, the beaded chiffon skirt immediately told the audience she was a rich girl. I would love that dress for Tuesday night. Okay, here's a look at Trouble with Harry. Not very glamorous. I really wanted a counterpoint. Yeah, and really at this point I've reached a moment in my own career in my writing where I'm getting less and less glamorous with the stuff that I like to look at. So it's like, what a relief, right? So Miss Head could do the high, she could do the low. She designed what was appropriate for every screenplay. And here's the sketch. And these are all by Grace Sprague. So I'm going to show you quite a few sketches. Again, I published a tiny number of these sketches in my book, Dress, downstairs. A tiny number. These huge number of sketches are all in Madison, Wisconsin, if you're ever there. So, fabulous sketches by Grace Sprague. And you might wonder, you would think, do you have this costume at the V&A? What do you think? Well, Deborah, so do you have the gold dress at the V&A? No, this dress does not exist anymore. In To Catch a Thief, Grace Kelly is one of the richest heiresses in the world. A big costume ball on the Riviera. She has a golden wig, a golden mask, a golden fan, and she's all dressed up in cloth of gold. Little golden birds all over her dress and in her hair. Hitchcock said, I want her to look like a fairy tale princess, A director can so easily give a word picture of what he wants, such as, in this scene, I want a quiescent look. In this scene, an aggressive dress is necessary. So this was, again, Grace Sprague, and that's the costume for Cary Grant on the right. And a bit of the headdress. And usually, if we're making something at the studio or in a costume workroom, there are going to be drawings indicating to the interpreters or to the makers exactly the mood. If not definitively, then the mood of what every single thing must look like. And again, the background extras. And these are, I can talk about sketches a little bit as contracts. Just for a moment, a sketch has many purposes. It is a contract between the director and the costume designer. Mr. Hitchcock, here's the sketch. Mr. Hitchcock writes his, I have his approvals on another page, but I approve Alfred Hitchcock. That drawing goes to the workroom. It becomes the diagram, the map, the architectural drawings to create the costume. And that's a promissory note to Mr. Hitchcock that on the day that that scene is shot, that dress will arrive at the set looking like that. That's the note, right? I promise you this dress will look like that. These are all background for that big ball. I don't want to go too fast, but just to show the level of detail. So take a look where she says double. And you can see unpressed pleats on the right. This is a Grace Sprague sketch. There is a signature. You can see it's, I don't think it's Mr. Hitchcock's, but there's a sign off on the left. That might be from the producer. It might be from the head of the workroom. And that's, again, it's like a bill. It's like a sign off. It's a promissory note. And then double. They're going to make this in doubles for whatever reason. Maybe it's a very, very hot day. Maybe Grace needs to get out of a warm dress into a cool dress. Maybe the dress is going to be used over a long period of time. Maybe there's a concern about rain. They want a second dress for Miss Kelly, right? It's doubled. Again, everything, here's Jessie Royce Landis playing Grace Kelly's mother. And you can see the difference. One is the idealized, and there is Jessie Royce Landis on the right. So she didn't quite make that waistline, right? I guess she was a big woman, right? Here's the back. Back of every sketch. Take a look. So up on top, producer, Mr. Hitchcock, director, Mr. Hitchcock, accessories, this is all the prices. 4 outfits. Every sketch in the golden age of Hollywood. If you're looking on eBay, if you're buying, if you're interested even, this is what the back looked like in the studio system. And those are the prices, right? And of course, just like old menus, the prices are shockingly low. It's incredible. I'd like to say something about men's clothes at the time and during the golden age. If the movie was a contemporary film, many male stars were expected to provide their own clothes in the contract. Someone like Fred Astaire, for instance, had his clothes and tailcoats made on Savile Row. Cary Grant did the same. All of Cary Grant's own clothes were made for a long time on Savile Row and made in London. And there were people like Robert Taylor, however, when he started out, was in a lot of low-budget or film noir contemporary films. And Robert Taylor had a brown suit, and he said he could track his own old brown suit through many, many, many movies because he kept wearing the same brown suit. So it wasn't really early on. There was an entire tailoring department at all of the big studios, MGM, Paramount included, that were really dedicated to making period costumes for men. But the contemporary clothes, their own suits, they brought with them and paid for, and I guess they were paid a little bit more for them. So the man who knew too much was quite different for Miss Head. And here's a quote from Doris Day. She said, "The first time I saw Hitchcock, I was with Edith Head. That's the very first time. And I was talking about my costumes. Hitchcock came in, wanting to see the sketches and to discuss them. And he was a very, very thorough man who got involved in every aspect of the movies he was directing. On that day, he threw out some of my sketches, and he was very precise about exactly what he wanted for my wardrobe. Hitch's office on the Paramount lot was right next to the costume department, so he'd often drop by during my fittings and to just keep an eye on what they were creating for me. And Miss Day said, the clothes were not right for me, but they were just right for what a doctor's wife would wear. And that's what I was playing. Edith dresses actors for the part, not for themselves alone. And an actress couldn't say anything more wonderful about a costume designer. And we're going to move to Vertigo. A lot of stories about the making of Vertigo because there was really a clashing of wills. Here's Miss Head. I remember Kim Novak saying that she would wear any color except gray. And she must have thought that would give me full reign. But either she hadn't read the script, or she wanted me to think that that I hadn't explained to her that Hitch paints a picture in every film, and that color is as important to him as to any artist. Well, as soon as she left the fitting room, I was on the phone to Hitch, asking if that damn suit had to be gray. Now, what he said back to her is, it can be any color as long as it's gray. So he explained that the suit was very important and represented the character's view of herself in the first half of the film. The character would go through a psychological change in the second half of the film and then wear more colorful clothes to reflect the change. And I have, at the V&A right now, a wonderful, wonderful bright green costume from Vertigo that is so exciting to see. So Hitch said, handle it, Edith. And she remembers him saying, it can be anything. She can wear anything as long as it's a gray suit. So when Kim came in for the next session, I was completely prepared. I had several swatches of gray fabric in various shades, textures, and weights. Before she had an opportunity to complain, I showed her the sketch and the fabrics and suggested that she choose the fabric she thought would be best on her. She immediately had a positive feeling and felt that we were designing the clothes together. Boy, that Edith, you know? Of course, I knew that any of the fabrics would work well for the suit silhouette that I had designed, so I didn't care which one she chose. Kim Novak later said that her shoes anchored her to the earth. The actress took the limitations of her costume as a source for character development. Kim Novak. I can use that feeling when I played Judy. Judy is trapped into portraying Madeline, and she doesn't want to. She wants to be loved as Judy. So I used that feeling of wearing someone else's shoes that didn't feel quite right. And that made me feel out of place. The same thing with Madeline's gray suit, which helped me stand so straight and erect the way Edith Head built it. I hated that silly suit. To tell you the truth, but it helped me feel uncomfortable as Madeline. And actually, I don't know if that's the, that has a story behind it, and if I remember it, I'll tell it to you. This is the costume that we have at the V&A right now. And it's not this color, it's a Kelly green, and it's absolutely sensational. And you can see, again, a working drawing on the very lower right. Please see the approval. Black coat dress. Art gallery suicide, very often the scene number was on it. That's what went to the workroom. And everything else, Miss Head was at that workroom table while that fabric was being cut, at every fitting, and supervising the creation of the clothes. All right, the birds. So, Edith Head. In the birds, fashion was not too important because we started out establishing the girl as a well-dressed person with taste and money. Later, as she became more terrified, Hitchcock preferred that the audience not notice her clothes. He didn't want any distractions from the terror. I can barely remember what she had on myself. That's the perfect movie, right? He virtually restricted me to 2 colors, blue and green. We had to work together for so many years that I was well aware of his feeling about garish colors. He didn't like anything bright unless it made a story point. He preferred natural colors, as he called them, beige, soft greens, and delicate turquoises. He had a strong feeling that color should never be so strong that it overpowered the scene or the actress. If the script called for a girl in a red dress, that was one thing. But to put her in a red dress for no reason was out of the question for Alfred Hitchcock. Tippi Hedren. There are wonderful designers who make you look good, very elegant, whatever. But Edith taught me that you not only design to make the person look good according to character, you have to make sure that the person can do the action, right? Not only did it have to be a dress that people wouldn't get tired looking at, it had to be capable of doing all of this action. I was running from the birds, and I was getting in and out of boats. And I just would like to say about this that there's actually a wonderful quote from Tippi Hedren that I don't have here. When you're doing a chase movie, when you're designing a chase movie, the audience can't tire of the color on screen. And Miss Hedren said that Edith developed this beautiful Nile green, a very, very soft green, for this suit because Hitchcock thought it was very pleasing, it was very easy on the eye, and you could track her all throughout the movie in this suit, and it was very, very hard wearing. And I know this sounds so self-promotional, but this also is at the V&A. And finally, Edith Head said, Alfred Hitchcock is the only person who works on a script with such detail that a designer would go ahead and make the clothes, that no designer would go ahead and make the clothes without discussing them with him. It's so completely lucid. He said, she's in a black coat, she has a black cat, and she's wearing black glasses. With Hitchcock, I know in time who's going to be in bed, in what part, and what's needed. I already know it's the kind of pictures where the girls wear sweaters, skirts, and sport clothes. 10 or 15 years ago, we would have had the sweaters and skirts made to order. Today, nobody, and this was in the 70s, nobody, not even Hitchcock, does that because the financial situation has changed so much in Hollywood. And I think that's the end of my talk.